Joining us now, Falano, Folari Falano, popularly known as Falz, a musician. He's joining us now on the program. Folari, glad to have you join us on the program. The protests have been going on for some time. Now, I want to ask you this. Do the End SARS realize that in all dealings with government, sovereignties, world over throughout history, everything ends, as it were, on the negotiating table? The government has yielded some grounds, held itself back so far from interfering with the protests. Is it not high time then to get, one, a leadership structure, two, categorize its demands into three: immediate, short-term, and then long-term? Because this whole saga should be about moving from point A to point B and not about endless, tortuous adventure. What do you think, Folari?
I think what we're seeing now is something that has built up. What's going on, neither can we dictate what to do to anyone. What we've seen now is a situation whereby the youth have come together and the youth have said, we don't have one leader. We don't have one person that you can sit on the table and negotiate with, because we know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is you're going to call him to a corner and you're going to offer him something. You're going to offer some money, or you're going to offer some political appointment. But we don't want that to happen. And that's why the youth have remained without a leader for this long. But our demands are clear. There is no need for a table. There's no need for a sit down. There's so many people calling me. I'm not the leader. There is no leader in this movement. Everyone is acting based off the anger that they're feeling right now. So you can't be contacting me and telling me to come and sit down on the table and negotiate with some people when everybody knows our demands. We publicly published all our demands. We marched to the AIG's office. We marched to the governor's office. We handed in our demands to the governor, and the governor did a publication where he said that he took those same demands to Mr. President, and we saw where he presented these demands. Everyone knows the demands. So what are you asking for a negotiation table for? What are you coming to sit down to talk about again?
Thanks, Falz. You know, it's interesting looking at the way everyone is seeing this right now on every single side. But some way, somehow, we have to be able to find solutions to these problems. And by the way, it's good to see you. In an open letter to President Muhammadu Buhari, you stated that continuous refusal to reconstitute the Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission is a deliberate attempt to mislead us into thinking that genuine efforts are being made to reform the Nigerian police. Can you elaborate on this a bit?
Yes, I was trying to explain this. So the Human Rights Commission has remained without what is called the Governing Council since 2015. The Human Rights Commission cannot really exercise its function without that Governing Council. All it has right now is an executive secretary who cannot act without a Governing Council. Now, this is the body. This Human Rights Commission is the body that is supposed to handle all these. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you.
Sorry, I thought it cut off for a minute.
Go ahead.
I'll just pick up from there. The Human Rights Commission is the body that is supposed to handle all these gross violations of human rights and ensure prosecution of same. But if they haven't had a governing council since 2015, then of course this would force me to believe that President Buhari, knowing fully well that this is the case, knowing fully well that this is the body that is supposed to refusing to recall the governing council is, or pretty much doesn't care about our human rights.
All right, we'll get back to you.
So that is pretty much what I was trying to say in that concluding paragraph of that letter.
Good, fine. I want to take up some other issue, but this question of human rights has come up. Ojukwu, the executive secretary, took the letter of the panel that was set up in 2018 that found 37 police officers defaulting, and then immediately the 37 was recommended by the PSC recommended that 37 be dismissed, 24 prosecuted. Now, Falz says they're not responding. Is that right?
No, well, you see, what the point he's making is that we need to build institutions. if the institution that is charged with dealing with human rights abuses in the country is not properly constituted at that level, I think then there is a problem. Because everybody will be wondering, people outside this country, when all these atrocities were happening, there's no institution that can checkmate the police, that when names are mentioned, these persons are investigated and prosecuted. Because it's the absence of that that also promotes impunity among these officers and men of the End SARS. And I think it's an aspect that we need to work on going forward. Because if you set up another body, like the IG is already doing, SMART, and
SWAT, you mean?
yeah, SWAT rather, and you give them a brief, the tendency to abuse them, that brief, if there is not constant monitoring or apprehending and dealing with errant officers. You can have errant officers in any organization. In the army, we've seen it before. The soldier who killed those inspectors, those police investigators in Taraba. You have seen it before. But if you are not dealing with errant officers, there's no institution that is pursuing that, then you will see more abuse and more impunity, which was what was happening under SARS. Because we're all in this country, one case after another, huge publicity on the part of the media, somebody who has been killed. And after a few days, everybody will just go back to as if there's nothing has happened. Lives already lost. So this institution, the point it's making is that if the government has not considered the governing council properly, then it itself is a problem.
Wait, you haven't answered the question. Isn't the government doing something? That was the question I asked. Because he said
those recommendations, what happened? There were recommendations that were not implemented, and it's part of the anger.
No, well, let's get on, because the question is, isn't the government not responding to the protesters? That's the question.
Okay, in terms of response, yes.
That's the question.
Yes, you mentioned the response. Some measures have been taken. Were they far-reaching enough? Maybe not. Maybe. Can there be more concrete steps? Can there be more fast measures? Measures that people will see things happening. No SARS officer has gotten to court. It doesn't take long. How long does it take to arraign somebody in court if somebody has killed somebody?
Let me bring Falz back in here.
Until people see that happening, that 5 SARS officers who killed X number of persons are taken to court today, their trial has started. That will be concrete action.
I think that's exactly what is being said here, Mr. Efeni. Let's bring Falz back in here. The government, Falz, continues to appeal to protesters to stop occupying public roads, public offices, and to allow public officers to go and do their work. How do you see this all playing out? The leadership of the National Assembly has now made that exact same call. And of course, as we know, protesters are still out protesting today. How do you see all of this playing out over the next week or so? I mean, that's not saying there's any leadership to this whatsoever, but what's your take on it?
I'm trying my best not to get angry, because it's extremely infuriating when we see statements like that telling protesters not to protest. How about we tell the government to act on what we're asking for? How about they go ahead and like he just said now and about Akuzu SARS, or however you pronounce it, I don't even know. The guy in Anambra State and several atrocities that he committed there. What has happened to this man? Has he been tried for these heinous crimes that he committed? Has he been tried? No one has been arraigned. Justice has not been done, but people's lives have been lost. People have died as a result of these gross, disgusting violations of our human rights, and nothing has happened. And you're telling people to stop protesting? Why will they get off the streets? It's not difficult. It's not that hard. Put these people on trial. Put it on TV. Let's see it happening. Let's see it happening. I will never, me personally, I would never tell anyone to get off the streets if I see that justice has not been done. I did a video yesterday that I shared via my Instagram and my Twitter, trying to explain that the state judicial panels that they set up, we need to see real action. These people need to be tried. They need to be sentenced for these gruesome crimes that they've been committing.
Right, we'll get back to you first. I think I was discussing this with you a while ago. Somebody was asking me, in fact, before I entered the studio this morning, the director was asking me, Vaz, where's your face? So are you, who is annoying you? Now, I was really livid with anger this morning. I mean, angry this morning. I'm a broadcast journalist as well as a Nigerian. On my way to the office this morning, the entire Surulere, the areas I would normally take, all the areas were blocked. Now, it was risky. I saw a young man who said, so I don't know where you're going. I said, I'm going to VI. I said, I'm going there. I had to park my car because of this. But that I know which way you can take. So we managed, and got out of Surulere, got into Western Avenue, and I got to the office. I was actually driving back home. Ibadan Expressway, I think yesterday or the day before, people spent 10 hours on the road. And what people are saying, can the protest be done without infringing on other people's rights? Let other people do their business. Do your protest if you must do it, even though everything should come to an end sometime, someday.
Well, the many Nigerians have responded differently to these End SARS protests. If you take even people who are stuck in traffic, if you speak with them, many of them will just say, well, somebody has to do this. Somebody has to do this. You were annoyed. Last week I calculated the duration I spent on the road, Monday to Friday. It was over 24 hours cumulatively. But I wasn't annoyed.
Yeah.
I wasn't annoyed because the point they are making, the right to protest, which is well entrenched in the Constitution, and that Nigerians are exercising this right to hold leaders accountable. I think for lovers of democracy like myself, it is salutary. So that leaders, politicians will know that, look, it cannot be business as usual.
Yeah.
People cannot just be dying and we just walk away. And those policemen will just continue parading all over the place, continue with harassment. It was a reign of impunity among these End SARS. So it's like these youths were pushed to the wall. Yes, for the rest of us, we need to suffer some inconvenience. Sometimes you get annoyed, sometimes you just take it in your stride.
Thanks, Mr. Afeni. Great point to bring Falz back in on here again. Falz, I don't want to say too much. I'd like to get your reaction to what my colleagues in the studio just had to say.
Sorry, I didn't get that question. Can you ask that again?
Yeah, can I get your reaction to what my colleagues in the studio just had to say, talking about the inconveniencing of road users, how it's being perceived? Of course, we have two sides to the story that have just been told here. What's your take?
I find it funny that that he would even ask, that is there any way to protest while at the same time allowing business to carry on, people that want to go to work? Why are you even thinking that business should carry on as usual? How can a policeman look me in the eye and tell me, I will shoot you, I will kill you, and nothing will happen? And you're telling me that I should leave the streets or I should create leeway for people that want to carry on their business? How are you not even concerned that people are getting killed every day? People are being wasted. Our youth are their lives trigger-happy policemen, and you want to carry on business as usual. Isn't this what we always see? That these things happen, nothing ever gets done, and you still want us to allow some people go to work. You are complaining about traffic. What is traffic to the man that lost his child? What is traffic to the victims of that man, that Akuzu SARS whatever his name is, that man that killed people and dumped their bodies in the river. What is traffic to those people?
Right, we'll get to you first. Let me bring you in. Now he's mentioning now Kuzu. Government has agreed to the demand of the protesters and the police reform is in gear. That we know. It takes a process. Even the governor of Lagos State marched with the protesters, the governor of Kwara, rather, marched with the protesters to the headquarters of the police. I don't know whether you watched that video. The governor of Lagos State called out those that assaulted protesters and they are facing orderly trial. In fact, he said within 4 hours of their demand, within 3-4 hours, all the people who were protesting, according to him, were released. Then you go to Anambra State, the infamous END SARS. I watched Obiano yesterday, the governor of Anambra State. He yielded to all the demands of the protesters and even went to the notorious END SARS to close the place and release some people who were held. Then he said, stop the protest. Shouldn't the protesters sheathe their sword?
Well, appeal will continue to go on, go to the protesters.
I say all this to say that
yes,
things are happening.
Yes.
The governors, the
the
government
governors
are doing
look,
something.
You see, earlier in the day in the morning show, I was asked a question. And I said, look, all these pockets of reaction from governors, they don't carry as much weight as if our president...
Don't forget
if our president...
judicial inquiry has been set up today by the governor, which
Yes.
all the 36 states should set up.
Inquiry, when you know persons who committed crime, when there's a saying, when you want to sweep something under the carpet, you set up a committee or a panel. You look at it, they come up with a report, you set up another committee to look at their report. We are talking of persons known to have committed heinous crime. Bring them to book. We should see them being taken to
Mr.
court.
Fani, sorry, can you hold your thoughts for one moment? I know that we don't have much longer with our guest, and we're going to come back into the studio to discuss this in more detail. But Falz, let me just ask you, because we did just see that on the news earlier on today, the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has come out to set up the police brutality panel in Lagos State. What's your reaction to the setting up of this panel? How do you feel about the inclusion on the panel, let's say, of youths, etc.? Let's get your take on this.
Like I said earlier in the video that I put out yesterday, I think it's a step in the right direction. This is the panel that will be responsible for conducting investigation, taking in, they'll take in reports from people that are victims of all these cases of police brutality. After they take in the reports, then they prescribe as appropriate for the Attorney General to prosecute. Now, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, but it's very important, very, very important that the youth are well represented on this panel. Why? Because we have to monitor proceedings. Nobody in Nigeria of today can sit back and allow any panel carry on their work without any sort of supervisory role. We have to supervise what's going on there, because we know this is Nigeria. We know all the nonsense, all the wuru-wuru and mago-mago that they've done in the... And everything has to be broadcast live. I'll tell you, let us be watching everything that's going on. Let us be sure that there's transparency. Let us be sure that everybody is accountable for their actions. And we're speaking about this END SARS. The same guy that's notorious for all these heinous crimes was made senior security officer or something by governor of Anambra State.
Obiano.
If after investigation we find out that he committed some of these crimes while he was a senior security officer or whatever that post is, the governor would inevitably have become an accomplice to those offenses. So we have to really dig deep, bring out all the facts, show everything, and make sure that these people are brought to book. It's very important in this fight. Me personally, I would never tell anybody to get off the streets until I stop.
It is looking like we've lost a connection with Falz Folari Falana, I'm learning that you are back. Are you there? Good. Before we let you go, let me just quote some of the statements from the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. He says, we're on the side of the young people. Your requests are legitimate. Lagos will not tolerate the abuse of your rights. We're sincere in addressing your request. Suspend the protest, create an atmosphere of peace to stop hoodlums to take over the protest. What's your response to the governor of Lagos State's statement, or appeal, if you like?
My response to the governor of Lagos State is, if you want people off the streets, conduct these investigations and conduct these trials. If you want people off the streets, make sure that justice is done. It is unfair to the lives that have been lost that you're coming here and you're telling us to get off the streets. It is extremely unfair. In fact, it's terrible for any human being to even without justice being done, to tell people to get off the streets. I completely disagree with that. I would say, if you want people off the streets, make sure that justice is done, and in a way that is transparent, in a way that everybody can see.
Thanks a lot, Falz, for coming on Newsday today and sharing your views with us with regards to the End SARS protest. We really appreciate your time. Let's bring it back here into the studio now. Emmanuel Afeni is still with us, and we'll just look into this briefly before we do go on a quick break. Let's get your reactions to what Falz just closed with there.
Well, at one point, people must get off the streets. Whether it will be done tomorrow, next week, we don't know. But at some point, people must get off the streets. But one thing, the protesters must also take into consideration, while you may see some high level of organization at Lekki Toll Plaza, elsewhere around the country, it is not so organized. So, in order not to give room for miscreants to hijack this, I think at one point they have to get off the street. What happened in Benin when the protesters approached the prisons and set free prisoners, the correctional center at Benin Sapele Road, and set free prisoners. I'm not sure any protester will be proud of that action, and which has also led to the governor, who has given back their right to protest, and of course has declared curfew, 24-hour curfew in Benin. So at one point, the youths will also have to get off the street so that miscreants who are in some other areas where they are not as organized as the Lekki toll gate are also bringing some bad reputation to the protests. At one point, it has to be considered. But clearly, the demands of the youth, especially to see people being put on trial for their crimes, I think that is legitimate. What they call other room police trial, where they do some trial in secret, is not something that can actually bring down anybody's anger. People should be tried in an open court, and it will be reported. So I think the quicker we move to that level of arraigning these people who perpetrated these atrocities, I think the more likely you bring down the tension on the streets we are seeing.
All right, let's get back to you, Falari. Is it not possible that there are some others, he was referring to that a while ago, some others who have got into this protest with some clandestine reasons, if I may put it like that, and are causing havoc? What happened in Osun State, where the governor's convoy was attacked? I think, if I'm correct, in Ekiti State too. There are definitely security implications. We were just watching a video a while ago of prisoners being set free in Sapele.
Benin,
yeah.
So what is the question?
Yeah, I asked you, is it not possible that some people have taken this opportunity to wreak this sort of havoc, to, if you like, exercise their clandestine activities? So, like he said, at a point, the protests have got to stop. What do you say to these people who have, to this kind of situation we're witnessing?
I think the only thing that is to blame for these sort of situations we're witnessing is the government's lackadaisical attitude to what we're asking for. The government is dragging its feet, and these protests have been on for so many days. It's been way over a week, and I think it's probably running into 2 weeks now, and we still haven't seen real action. You know, inevitably there will be some unscrupulous elements. There will be some hoodlums, inevitably, that would infiltrate. And of course, there are rumors. Excuse me. Of course, there are rumors of these hoodlums being sponsored. But anyway, that's a story for another day. But of course, these things will start to happen. But if you give the people what they're asking for, which is not too much to ask, all we're asking for is that justice be done. Stay alive and not be killed by the police, not be extorted by the police, not be brutalized by the police. My human right. How can I be begging you for my human right? Why do I have to wait for so long before you act on it? Of course, there will be unscrupulous elements on the street, but I will still go back to blame the government's lackadaisical attitude for this.
It's quite interesting as well, because it can also be argued that it is the police that should even be there protecting peaceful protesters from all these unscrupulous activities that could be coming in and trying to hijack the peaceful protest. So it's quite interesting to see this playing out the way it is. Let's speak about the power of online protesting as well. This is something that we're just seeing now in the age of information. The fact that protesting online can have so much of an influence, or such a big influence, on what we are seeing today. What's your take on this?
I think the internet is playing a big part. The internet has played a huge role. You know, the world is a smaller place now because of the existence of the internet. You know, so protesters from all around the world have been able to, of course, via the internet, to see what's going on in Nigeria, and of course take up the protests in various parts of the world. We've seen pictures from London, we've seen pictures from Canada, we've seen pictures from the United States. You know, so the internet is making the world a smaller place. We've also seen international attention being drawn to what's going on here. We've seen foreign celebrities lending their voices to what's happening. You know, so the internet just brings everything together. We've also seen a statement by the United Nations that they're closely observing what's going on here as regards these protests. And, you know, we all know what that means. You know, it's becoming disgraceful, you know, that these horrible violations of continue to happen, and the fact that the police, the body charged with the responsibility of protecting lives and property in this country, are the ones perpetrating these acts. It's becoming more and more disgraceful to people from the outside. So the internet is playing a huge part in terms of shedding light on what's going on here.
I'm sure you're aware of the Vice President Oshibajo. His response to this protest, he's gone on Twitter and has apologized to the protesters and said that, look, government is getting on with it. They may not have acted fast initially, but they're getting on with it, just like what the NAS leadership said. Some of your points of reference, as it were, for lack of phrase to use, for example, the one that has to do with the police, is something that will take process. It can't be done in one fell swoop. So how do you respond to the action of the Vice President?
Which one requires time? Which one are the 5 things on our 5 for 5
the police,
agenda really require?
The remuneration emolument to the police, their pay, salary, that has to take a legal process. National Assembly has to come in.
It really does? Okay, no problem.
There has to be budgeting for it.
One, no problem. Let's say that one requires time. What about 1, 2, 3, and 4? What What about 1, 2, 3, and 4? Do they also need time? You need time to release all arrested peaceful protesters. You need time for that. Number 2, you need time to make sure that justice and appropriate compensation is provided for people that were wronged. You need time. How much time do you really need for that? And what moves have you really made to show that you're yeah, I can hear you. I don't know if you caught the last thing I said.
No, we didn't. Your line was
okay.
breaking. Connection.
Okay, sorry about that. So what I was saying was which one of those points really need time? If we're being honest with ourselves, which one of all the points on the 5 for 5 agenda really needs time? Come on. If you really need time to release all arrested peaceful protesters, you really need time for that, or you really need time to make sure that justice is done and appropriate compensation for their family, of course, to properly allocate every single case. That will be done over the course of a period of time. But what real actions have been shown? What real actions have been taken to show that you're serious about doing this? Look at how long they dragged their feet for, even before they created these state-by-state panels. Look at how long it took. They're not even showing any real intent to make things right. They're not. Nobody, for example, nobody has been sacked. In any sane society, the Inspector General of Police would have already retired. Resigned by himself. Is he waiting to be sacked? All these stories of horrible violations of human rights happened under him. All this upside down state.
Thanks, Falz.
Happened under him. They need to be sacked.
There's honestly a lot here to talk about, and I do wish that we had more time. But many thanks for joining us on Newsday today and also giving us that extra 15 minutes at the end to round up this conversation. Have a great day ahead.